when we should examine one's light. Not only will we acknowledge an intelligence, but we will also discover the DNA which connects us all as one. Welcome to Light Insight with Hillis Pugh, where we dive into the mind's light. Only on Real Revolution Radio X.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Light Insight, to where we dive into the mind's light. And today, I have the honor of interviewing the producer, the creator, the man of the hour, Mr. Joel Ayapana, who is the producer, creator of Real Revolution Radio. Welcome to the show, Joel. I'm so glad to have you here with me today.
Hillis, thank you for having me. It's quite an honor. Thank you.
So I know that we really don't have a set agenda, as we're both, very in tune as to what's happening in the world right now. So I figure we just keep it open and allow the energies to flow where they may go to create a wave of information that people can really adapt, adjust, and really take hold of and really carry it with them in their everyday to dissect and really understand the truth, if you will, of what's really going on. So where do you want to begin?
Really, however you want to spin it. I guess we're still on quarantine. You're pretty much still on quarantine, right? For the most part, in this COVID-19 pandemic?
Yeah, pretty much still on quarantine. It's mid-April, and so, it's expected to go to the end of the month. And I can say that this time has really been good for me because, living in Florida, on the west coast of Florida, is pretty isolated anyway. And so it's not a lot happening, not a lot going on down here. But I will say, being an intuitive, being, spirituality, I haven't really watched much news. I keep up to date as to what's going on and when I can leave the house. But that's as far as it goes, as far as, the epicenters and people getting sick. So I don't follow that because I try to keep my vibration high.
Absolutely. I try to do the same thing myself, but, it's been like a checks and balance type of approach from the past few weeks to months for me. So it's and you want to keep it cool for the most part, but sometimes when you just research and just chime into a lot of things that's happening, social media wise, or even mainstream media wise, it's like, wow. If one does not know too much about what's really happening, this is the frightful experience. But I guess so we're people who are kind of like in the know, wouldn't you think?
Yeah, definitely, especially you, because you're on the front lines being a registered nurse, and they're actually in it. Like a lot of your colleagues and your peers, they're in it and just, doing what they can to really understand how this virus and how this fear and how this stress and anxiety affects the body on multiple levels. And so how has that been, just literally being in it every single day?
Well, as without going into too much detail to what I do in detail, just for HIPAA purposes, I can't relay what hospital system or even what particular patients do or the diagnosis. But as a psychiatry nurse, dealing with people who are diagnosed with certain ailments such as PTSD, trauma, who have homelessness type of concerns, and also addiction to certain type of street drugs, which is the line of work that I do as a psychiatry nurse. We are exposed constantly with many different people. So there's a high degree of traffic. But since the social distancing, which was pretty much a directive from our local states and government entities, that we had to shut down a lot of the operations and put a lot of folks on quarantine as well. So, not only just is our hospital system, but not only just our country, but the entire globe is on lockdown. It's on shutdown, and this has never been done before in my lifetime. And to be on the front lines and dealing with this invisible enemy per se, it can be pretty scary, and I know other nurses who have been up there, not only just for people that you don't even know whether they're positive or not, but for those who are assigned and detailed to an actual unit where it's 100% COVID-19 positively diagnosed individuals. That's scary too, especially for those who are dealing with those patients that are not well equipped with a proper, protective equipment, type of helmet, which prevents you from acquiring any particular type of viral illness because of the mask involved with such a protective equipment, arsenal of things that you have to wear when you're in such a unit. For those people who are not well equipped, it's scary because now you're thinking, you know what, I could be a carrier or vector and then transferring this over to my children or my parents who are elderly, and so that's what's happening right now to many of the hospital systems where we are at. And there are nurses left and right who are right there trying to make that decision. I have a family. I still need to have a job. But you know what? All of that is nothing if I'm sick with the COVID. And so there's many nurses that are quitting left and right. And then there are other nurses who have no choice. And they have to go into, right in the front lines, only having a surgical mask and not the required N95 mask to basically protect them. So it's a big issue.
And like I say, from watching the news and all other forms of media, that this is the issue of shortages and really not having the proper equipment. But some of the things that you don't hear is one of the things you just mentioned about people quitting because of fear. And, when you have someone who's on the front lines, and wanting to do their best and really wanting to be of service to other people, but yet they, as you mentioned, they have families to think about, do you leave your job in concern of your family to maintain their health and well-being and just for yourself as well? Or do you just continue to fight the good fight? It's almost like that catch-22. Do you want to stay and fight and make sure that you live up to your oath to help other people to be well and to live their best life, or do you want to just simply say, you know what, this is a bit much, and I put my health above everyone else right now? And so I don't blame anyone for quitting, but at the same time, it's just going to be more for everyone else to do.
Absolutely, and that's where government officials have mentioned many times, whether it's at the state level or at the nationwide level, there is great pressure upon our hospital systems at the current moment because of that fear. Even for myself, when it was fresh, I say maybe the tail end of March to the mid portion of March, when I myself was even exposed to a positive COVID patient, and then I started to have symptoms which I didn't think was even related to the actual COVID-19 itself, as far as symptomology. And the symptoms that I had was, pretty much new symptoms that was surfacing that wasn't just the fever or the scratchy throat or the body aches. Mine was more of like a GI related, and again, there's other people too who are asymptomatic. They don't experience anything, and that makes it even more scary too as well, because now are you a carrier? Are you just a vector? And the next person that you come across who could be a family member, could they actually have the COVID-19 symptoms, which is more evident in nature as opposed to yours, which is non-symptomatic. So, yeah, that's a big issue right there. But I'm not going to say everybody should do this or that and everything's black and white. Everybody's situation is different. I personally, when I was exposed to that individual, I self-quarantined myself. So I called off twice, but then when I came back, through secondary screening, right before I was about to go back to work, as scheduled, they screened me and they told me, you know what, we're going to have you on 7-day quarantine too as well, so, as a precautionary measure. So, there are definitely particular steps that you have to come across just to be safe, because we don't know exactly what we're dealing with, So, again, everybody just has to make their own decisions as to what's going on, especially being exposed to the information that they've been researching about this particular virus.
Yeah, and definitely everyone, do your homework, do your research. But I will say there have been some positive side effects to us being on quarantine globally, such as the pollution in China and in LA and different parts of the world have been reduced because no one's driving, no one is out. There's not a lot of public transportation being used. There's definitely people out there now being a bit more innovative in what they do in connecting with people, whether it's through using social media and their live platforms to connect with people and to reach out to people and really allow for us to really connect in a new and innovative way. And with us being on quarantine, globally, we just really have to understand, what it is that makes sense for us as a world nation to really not just, as some people say, flatten the curve or reduce the rate of infection, but also to say, this is also a time of healing or getting to projects that he said he was going to get around to. Now is the time, because all we have now is time, and to call up that person who you haven't talked to in a few years. So it's like all this love and all these check-ins and all this way to really connect with people is really an amazing side effect to all of this.
Oh, absolutely. I guess in many fronts of how people are approaching this, whether it's on the surface of things of what they tell you what's happening, or whether it's the financial front of things of what is actually happening, to the religious, to the spiritual, to the political, okay? There's like one common thread that is congruent with all of these ways that we perceive of what is happening. And it seems to be like a reset, okay? In the financial world, they'll say, okay, it's a financial reset that's happening. Financial reset? What do you mean by that? Or even in the spiritual world, there is an awakening, right? Or a remembering that's happening. And the religious part of things, it might be it's the end of the world. The political, So there's one main thing that's common between all of those. It's literally a reset. So what better way to reset than to be at home, to be by yourself with your family, just as one particular entity, and literally just taking the time to realize what's going on, not only on the outside, but like within ourselves. So it's kind of like a return back to self. I've always been a huge proponent to self, and when you are to know thyself, you are to know thy universe. That's why it's called the universe. It's you. This entity of what is going on right now as we speak, as it pertains to you, it's your universe. And if that's the case, then my universe is my universe, but then Hillis's universe is Hillis's universe that's being created, and then the next person is their own. So there's a multiverse that's happening exactly as we speak, all at once. And like once we were able to understand that, because to tell you the truth, you can't understand that within the dynamics of or the physics of how we are on this plane. It's just no way, because it doesn't fit in with the physics of this timeline. But if you're to sometimes meditate or to go in a place which is outside of this realms, it becomes more apparent and clear of what is going on. Because, like, I don't think I've been, or even my next door neighbor, or even people I've gone to school with, we have not been taught about the multiverse or parallel reality in science class or even in physics, let alone ancient America or ancient archaeology of what you and I know. We haven't been exposed to that, Hillis, you know?
No,
so,
it's funny, you know, because I know you just mentioned about, you know, how religions talk about the world ending. Well, we've had, according to religion, had several times the world should have ended, and it didn't. And, you know, going back, I know, right? We're still here.
We're still here.
You know,
but
exactly.
Isn't it funny too, Hillis? I mean, I don't know if you heard it through the grapevine or just people talking, or even social media or other particular outlets on mainstream where there's just a blurb that comes out. But I've heard from the last 15 years that the Earth had actually exploded. You know, that it was the end, like humanity was gone. And then there's other parts that say that. Yes, and it's like, what are you talking about? Yeah, I remembered it exploded, and humanity was no more. So there are things that are happening that it's almost like the timelines have split, and then those that split have split again, and it's split. So if that's the case, then we are indeed in a multiverse where parallel realities are being created all the time. You know, I didn't understand this until I actually experienced that myself back in 2011. You know, and it's you know, many people who are going to be listening to this, they would know, because I've told this story several times, even in my book, the Book of Positive Light, Remembrance of the Heart, where I was in a Reiki conference, and I know you're huge on Reiki, so we had a Reiki conference back in 2011, and I'll be very short and straight to the point, but you know, I was there, okay, I was there with my friends, had a bunch of nurses there, and out of the blue, somebody from the left was this, I believe a speech therapist or some type of therapist. She came to my left and she just exclaimed, I mean, it was loud. It was like, "Oh my God, Joel, how you been?" I'm like, and I looked at her, and I was expecting somebody that I recognized. And for the life of me, I could not recognize her face, her voice, or her nature about herself. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know you, you know. And she was offended. It's like, "Joel, from Phoenix, registered nurse, you're a psych nurse, and that lady that's sitting right next to you, that's your wife." I'm like, "Oh, that's my friend." You know, my wife? What do you mean? That's your wife.
Oh, wow.
And that was my friend from a previous unit that I used to work in, you know. And the funny thing was because the week after the moment that I met this lady, I was going to Arizona, and I was going there for and at that time, that the following week was November 11th, 2011, 11/11/11. I was going there for a conference myself, and it's so funny, all of the little nuances that happened even after that was when I started meeting people who knew this person named Joel, who was a registered nurse, who was also a psychiatry nurse, bald head, Filipino guy that lived in Phoenix, Arizona. I met these people. And, there's several stories that I could go into, but just for the lack of time, I kid you not, why would a registered nurse lie, let alone a veteran, let alone a broadcaster? I mean, this is what we do as a network with Real Revolution Radio XO. We try to the best of our ability holistically to go and put out there the truth as much as possible. And why would I lie? And right. The experiences that I experienced there is like, okay, when I went back home from that flight, I asked myself, what is this? And get this, when I got back home, Hillis, okay, it was in November, and so my lease ends in December of the following month of that year, 2011. So I had to bring in some paperwork. I had to, basically sign a couple, documents. And when I came to the office, me and the manager of that apartment complex, we were usually very cool, and we had no problems. I was a wonderful tenant, and it was for the first time where she was very blunt, straight to the point, almost emotionless, and then she goes to me when I went to the office to sign the documents. She goes, there's some complaints about you. I was like, oh, what do you mean? What happened? Yeah, on this date, November 13th. And November 13th, I was still in Arizona. You were making all this ruckus, several complaints from your neighbors. You had come out of your apartment, slammed the door, and they heard you clamoring with a lot of stuff. One of the neighbors opened the door, and there you were with a box of pots and pans. Then you went to the laundry chute, or not the laundry chute, but the trash chute, and you dumped all of the pots and pans down the laundry chute. And guess what? It's broke. Your trash chute is broke. The mechanism in there to dispose of the trash was faulty. It's damaged, and it's going to cost $800, which is the amount of money that you want back for your deposit for your rent. And I'm like, what are you talking about? I was in Arizona. Like, okay, but your neighbor said that was you. You know your neighbor. Yes, I do, but I was in Arizona. Nobody was in my apartment. I'm the only one with the keys. You never even gave me separate keys. Have you? And she said, no. And so she was like befuddled and totally mystified. Like, are you serious? I'm like, yes. And she goes, well, give me the documentation that you were in Arizona. Oh, absolutely. Provided her with the conference tickets to Arizona at 11/11/11, and also the tickets down there, the itinerary. Gave it to her, and she looked at me like, "What? What are you talking about? Like all these complaints? I mean, misidentification. Yeah.
It sounds like something out of a movie.
Out of a movie, but like out of all that, I was relieved that she was like, okay, I'm totally weirded out right now, but you're going to get your deposit back. Everything's good, just as long as you clean your apartment, whatever, and all that good stuff. Nothing's broke. I'm like, okay, thank you. Of course, our relationship was never the same after that, but but then the thought was always right there within inside of me, even until this day. Who was that person, Hillis? Who was it? Who was in my apartment? Like, okay, I understand the whole thing of this Joel guy in Phoenix, but who's this Joel guy in Cleveland when I was in Phoenix? Like, like what happened? Did the timeline split just for a particular section in time because it was during 11/11/11? or what's happening? Is it just me, or is it anybody else, or everybody is experiencing this? But just because they're, you know.
Yeah, well, I can tell you from personal experience that I haven't experienced anything like that I can recall presently, but I am completely aware of the multidimensionality of each individual and how we live in, these multidimensions and the multiverses, and just to really comprehend that in itself. And, the past couple of shows, I was talking about quantum energy and quantum science and all this other stuff, so it really helped me, to understand it better, because, I've already had a grasp of it, and to understand the concept of quantum jumping to where you can, yourself in this reality can jump into another reality and connect with that soul energy in that space and bring all that knowledge and wisdom back into this reality with that individual. I'm like, so basically you're talking about time traveling. It's like, no, it's quantum jumping. That timeline is what it is, and you're where you are, but this is, to connect with other people, with other souls. And I'm like, okay, all right, I guess it kind of makes sense, and it kind of doesn't make sense, but, when you're, you have a brain that's trying to understand this massive amount of information, some of it you retain, others you dismiss, because, like with anything, if there's any biases to it based off of, what you learned in school, of course you're going to believe some of it and believe all of it, or believe none of it, and just simply take what you want and see how it applies to your life. And so with that particular experience, I'm waiting for the books about that one.
You know what? It's already out. It's since 2014. The book that I have out, the Book of Positive Light, it's essentially a journal of. And it's also, for each journal entry, it's coupled with a photo, of that experience, or something that mimics and parallel what I'm trying to talk about. So, but it goes accordingly to a timeline, and it's if you have ADHD, it's a perfect book for you, because it just goes all over the place. But it's really a journal of thoughts. Poetry, and I really had to get it out there, Hillis, because it's like, okay, so if I was saying all this stuff, fine, but I needed something to where I was able to professionally document it, and an actual manuscript, a book per se, to where even if my children, they were to question what I was talking about, there would be actually a reference to what I've told them, and so that they can basically have something to fall back on, as an actual thing written in stone in a book. And so, and also, it's also a reference for me too, to allow me to remember. And prior to this actual interview, you made mention that this whole awakening. Oh, no, stop it all. I'm tired of it. But it's true. You were right and correct when you say it's not about the awakening, it's the remembering, and that's what this book does for me, because, it allows me to remember that place I was within my heart and my spirit and my consciousness, to that very magical time in my life back in 2011, 2012, where this book is based upon, and so I have yet to crack open that book. It's been a while, but that book has a life of its own, and I've always known that it was another purpose. It's a template to, or kind of like a roadmap to get back to that place within the heart, if you have forgotten, So, yeah, you're correct. Yeah. It's about remembering who we are.
Yeah, and we are going to remember who we are when we come back from this quick break.
Whether it's coming from the world of entertainment, integrative medicine, quantum theory, conspiracy fact, ancient archaeology, sacred geometry, financial trends, or perhaps even from the very world of self-help and motivational speaking, Real Revolution Radio possesses the information you need. Listen today to our daily inspiring lineup of podcast radio talk shows, only on realrevolutionradio.com.
Today to the Marine Show, where we will introduce you to the world of alternative remedies. Join Marine Pisani as she hosts discussions with leading experts in the fields of hypnotherapy, acupuncture, yoga, Ayurveda, EFT, chronic healing, integrative medicine, and so much more. Marine will also brave topics that many consider taboo. Yes, taboo talk. Tune in today to the Marine Show, heard on popular social media and now on Smart TV. A quantum mindfulness radio production, only on realrevolutionradio.com.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Cleveland, we now have liftoff to a higher level of consciousness. Tune in to realrevolutionradio.com, the #1 source for independent music and inspirational podcast radio. Awaken, evolve, inspire, and join the evolution only on realrevolutionradio.com.
You're listening to realrevolutionradio.com. There's hope as long as you're alive.
And welcome back. As I remember who I am. I am Hillis Pugh, your host of Light Insight, along with our amazing producer and talented author, Joel. So before we went to break, we were just talking about this whole multi-universe, this whole multi-dimensional space and parallel universes and timelines, and really get into the quantum thick of it, if you will. So I guess I want to go down the rabbit hole a little bit deeper, because the past few weeks for me, have been eye-opening in a sense of, I know that you post little nuggets and little Easter eggs on your social media for people to really go research for themselves and really understand what the truth is that's happening in this world. And, and I think it was on April 4th, there was a mass meditation. I don't know if you were a part of that, but there was a thing going around on social media requesting 1 million light workers to meditate on April 4th at 10:45 Eastern, and it was per time zone. So if you were on the East Coast, it was 10:45. If on the West Coast, it was 7:45. And so I was a part of that meditation, and I woke up the next day and I saw a lot of people posting about, the success of this meditation, how it exceeded everyone's expectations, because not only did we get 1 million people, light workers, not did we just get 2 or 5 or 6 million, we got 1 billion light workers on the planet meditating at the same time. That's 1/7 of the world's population. And when I read that, and it went on to talk about how, during that time we entered into this new timeline, this new portal space energy. And I'm like, what? We just literally moved the whole entire Earth into a new energetic space. And, with me doing my research too, I looked that up, and then I don't know if anyone is fully aware how the solar system moves. According to the 3D model, everything revolves around the sun, which is true. However, what most people don't understand that, even though we are, as a universe, evolving around the sun and the solar system, but not only are we going horizontally around the sun, we're also going vertically up into the universe. So I guess I want your feedback and what you feel about having 1 billion people meditating on the planet and shifting us into this new space, this new energy.
Absolutely, yeah. I was part of that meditation. I know many different people, groups, who are linked up with different social media, from LinkedIn to Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And so, and you really didn't have to be a part of those meditation groups. You could have just meditated on your own. And to tell you the truth, I believe there was even more than 1 billion for those that have been meditating on their own, in their own space. And so that number is probably smaller than what it actually is. But yes, I didn't sit there per se in my own meditation. I went to the guidance of guided meditation through David Wilcox, and I think that's one of the more popular guided meditations that was happening during that time. That happened exactly at 10:45, and his meditation went on for a good 30 minutes. Him and his partner, I believe partner or wife, but they've been together for a long time. But it was very powerful meditation. Had some sound bowls going to some high vibratory music in the background too as well, and I was totally in sync. And on a personal basis, there was something that was happening on that day that wasn't as wonderful that had happened to me on that day, but I prayed for that too as well. And I thought, to tell you the truth, as far as how that would normally result, at the end of the day, it would often become a negative thing, right? But because I just let it go, I forgave the issue, and then I had also prayed about it during that global meditation, not really putting too much of, please, make this better. No, I just prayed for that individual, prayed for the circumstance, prayed for me, and usually that's one of the things, the 3 components that are very important with forgiveness is, forgiving yourself, the situation, and the other individual, And so almost like as if it had never happened, the next day, everything happened like it never, the situation never even existed. And I'm like, okay, what's happening here? And I dig what you say. We have literally jumped up to that ever more closely to 5D, in the same notion, in the same vein. Okay, I also felt that way when it was the presidential election back in 2016. Okay, I, as well as everybody else globally and even behind the scenes, people thought it was a Hillary election, that she would be the next president. It was time for a woman president. I don't know if it's Hillary or not, but the world was ready for that. And I could have sworn right before going to the hospital for work that it was a USA Today newspaper, and the front page in big bold letters was, "Your next president, Hillary Clinton." Okay, so by the time I got to work, I'm like, okay, I knew it. Yeah, that was pretty much evident. And then, I was doing my work at work, and then I decided to, kind of chime in on my phone to see, how this Hillary election, what was going about. And then you had a Donald Trump making an announcement of his election as the new president of the United States. I'm like, what are you talking about? And I didn't think about it back then, nor even had the chance to really have it sink in. But just recently, after a meditation and even writing about it, we did jump from 3D to even potentially like 4D, or even close to 4D, or whatever. Regardless of whatever number you want to put to it, we did jump up a little bit, because the way that the world is, that would have never become to be in this timeline on the 3D level, you know. And now, 4 years later, it's 2020, and even after that global meditation, through feeling and intuition alone, we have jumped up many spaces. Okay, and that comes to, you know, and it relates to everything. You know, just when you think that one thing is isolated, no, everything's connected, and I'm starting to really realize that everything is connected, and everything that is happening, without going into details of what you and I know. And I know we're being very general, but like, for the sake of not creating any controversy, we're just going to keep it at a low-key level, to where things are going to be good. You know, things are changing for the better, because it's time, and it's not just humanity per se. It's everybody who's associated with the creation of humanity from the very get-go. And it's time for this timeline to jumpstart into the next level of our evolution in consciousness. Now, I know in the world of global consciousness and awakening, it seems like that mindset, that those words are just too frequently said. Well, I mean, how else can you reframe it? I mean, it is what it is. It's our level of consciousness. I mean, in physicality, it's one thing, but it's not the evolution of our physical being. It's the evolution of consciousness to the next level. However that may be. Again, our physics cannot explain in this timeline of what that is, but on the next levels of what our future is, what it has been intended to be, it just makes all the more sense. But how do you describe that within this 3D, 4D timeline and space?
Well, I can give a little bit of insight to that with being a little bit more specific and yet general. The day after the mass meditation, I saw some really interesting videos pop up on social media. And for those of you who follow me and those who know me, know that I am a Lemurian light worker, and which means I was my ancestral line, my energetic line. The soul was incarnated during the time of Lemuria, during Atlantis, during all these rich times of science, technology, and spirituality. And during those times, the reason why each civilization failed was that they were out of balance, because there was too much science, too much technology, not enough spirituality, not enough humanity. And so when it reached the tipping point of having too much technology and science, then that's when everything began to fall apart, because the energy of humanity was not there to hold everything together like it is now. And so with these videos that I saw, and it was really trippy because I wanted to see it, and being down here in Florida, and the timing of the day, and it was kind of just really off. And so if anyone is aware or know of the Palladians and the Arcturians and all this energy, so the 404 meditation had, it was in conjunction with the full moon, or the new moon, one of the moons. And there was a flight path in how Venus was going to come into alignment with the moon, and how another planet was going to come into alignment. It was like this perfect alignment of Venus, the moon, and another planet. which helped to raise the vibration of the planet during this mass meditation. And so this video I saw, people were posting like these bright stars around the moon, and they were moving in sequence. They were moving in flight patterns. They was just moving, and I'm like, this is freaking amazing. It had to be at least a few dozen of them moving, not even like airplanes, but moving in sync around the moon, around this planet. And I'm like, those are our, brothers, our sisters, in another form to help assist us raise the vibration on the planet. And when I saw those videos, it just really brought so much joy to know that we are here, that we are being seen, and we are being honored, as we move through this time. Just like the Mayans predicted what happened in 2012, I wish they would have created another 100-year calendar to see what was going to happen next. But how they predicted all of this, and now, the reset started many years ago. But this one here, this particular point, this is like the halfway point. So this is why it's like a really hard reset. Everything else was like, you can simply press Control-Alt-Delete. It was a soft reset. But here, you just turn off the button. And it's like, okay, where's all the lights go? And I'm like, okay, we're completely in the dark. And so now it's like this new energy, and I'm happy to see the emergence of this new space.
Absolutely. Yeah. And for those people who want science attached to all of this, well, now, I mean, me personally, and you as well, we felt it. It was a huge spike. But for those people who may have felt it too, but they just want to see or have evidence, well, yeah, all you got to do is go to any particular website which has the Schumann resonance, and you will see that everything was flatlined prior to April 4th, and then even after April 4th on the 5th, it was total flatline. But when you look at the energy of the Schumann resonance on that day, on April 4th, it spiked up significantly. I think I can't really see it in too much detail right now,
75.
But it was 75, right? Yeah, and that's pretty high.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So if you can't feel it, well, you could definitely see it as far as the Schumann resonance graph that can be researched online. Just Google it.
Yeah. Yeah, listen, I kind of want to Google it now, later, actually, because I remember people saying after the meditation, it held for at 60 for a few days after the meditation. And I'm curious to know what it is now, being, almost 10 days out from the meditation. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And that's a whole bunch of people and a whole bunch of our star brothers and sisters who were also in alignment consciously for us. So that's powerful, And so that changes people energetically, and really it's that again, like what you have said, Hillis, it's that it allows us to jumpstart that self inner consciousness, that all knowing about ourselves, to remember who we are in connection to the stars. I'm a huge proponent for Lemuria. In the beginning stages of my remembering, I say about maybe 2 years prior to 2011, Lemuria, whether it's a book or people who were very much so into the history of Lemuria and its downfall on the physical plane. Now, like esoterically, it jumped into another realm of higher consciousness, and it's here today as we speak. but on the physical realms, it's no longer on this planet except for remnants of it that could be observed not only from just the Pacific, but also from people who basically journeyed from that point and have essentially spread out the spirit of Lemuria to all parts of the continents throughout the globe, from to India, to Peru, Australia. I mean, you name it.
Brazil.
And even Brazil, America.
Yes, that's where I get most of my crystals. Yes, I get most of my crystals from Brazil. My Lemuria crystals. Yeah,
absolutely. And here's another thing, Hillis. There's a huge presence here in America. America wasn't even named after Amerigo Vespucci. It's the original. America holds a very ancient tradition from amongst the people from South America, Brazil, Peru. Okay, the individual that came from Lemuria, as you know, is Amaru Meru, right? Yeah. One of the priest kings from there. And so the legend of Amaru went from South America to North America. And that's why America, as you would not know, America, 4 syllables, okay? The original name of America is Amaruka. Amaru.
Yeah.
And the tradition back then for explorers, when they would come across a new landmass to call their own, is not to change the continent by their original name, because Amerigo Vespucci was actually his birthright name is Abarigo Vespucci, but he changed his first name from Abarigo to Amerigo Vespucci to mimic the name of Amaruca to America. So he changed the name of Amaruca to America to mimic his new name because of his discovery to America. So Vespucci.
That's powerful stuff. And what is even more intriguing, and this is common knowledge, or at least I think it's common knowledge now, that the islands of Hawaii, especially the island of, I believe it's Kauai, holds Lemurian energy now, or always has.
Yes.
Especially the island of Kauai. But what I also I'm being guided to share is that leading up to the meditation, I want to say maybe the day prior to the meditation, having connection to the Lemurian and Syrian energy, their ancestors, the people who were here. I may be getting a little esoteric, a little spiritual for some people, but I had connected with the Council of 12, Sirius energy, the Lemurian energy, and asked for their permission to bring up and in the ancient energy of Lemuria through this meditative process for that time. And I was granted permission to do so. And so for most of the day prior, which was on April 3rd, 10 days ago, I went to Hawaii. My soul, actually, astral projected to Hawaii, went through and searched through all this ancient energy, these ancient tombs, through all this water, and I called in help to help raise up this island, this energy. And it was one of the most epic and beautiful things that I've ever felt and witnessed and done. And I'm like, what just happened? And so the day of the meditation, I just felt that grand connection to that old space and energy.
Wow. Why didn't you invite me esoterically? That would have been great. I would have gone.
You know,
I would have gone with you.
I probably
Hawaii.
did. You just don't remember.
I know. I was so busy.
I know,
that must have been. Yeah, that must have been a wonderful experience.
It was, because some people will, and I remember people texting me during that time, and usually I respond, in a timely manner. But during the summer, it took me hours to respond to people. It's like, "Where are you? You okay?" I'm like, "I'm fine. I'm busy. Leave me alone."
It's crazy. But Hawaii, I mean, it was okay. So you have Micronesia, you have Easter Island, you have Australia, you have all of these other islands that are not so much on the surface; they're undersea in the Pacific. Even the Philippines, there is oh my God, I can't believe it. I just forgot about that. Okay, the Philippines. The original name of the Philippines before it was named the Philippines by King Philip of Spain. He named this island a destination in the Philippines from this other name to the Philippines. The original name of the Philippines is Maharlika, and the elders in the Philippines, they know this. And if you ask any of my parents or my aunties and uncles who are, within their 60s, 70s, 80s now, and you ask them that question, grandmama, auntie, uncle, what is Maharlika, the Philippines? Like, who told you about that? What do you know about that? It's like how did you find out about that? So in a way, it's like almost like a hush-hush kind of thing. And here's another thing too, that which leads me to think that there's more to it, is that every time the Filipinos are very very magical people. They believe in the esoteric. They are very spiritual. Now, I'm not just saying Christian or Catholic or Hindu. They have a very old spiritual belief system. And one of the things that they always say, if you want to get into the hidden secrets of whatever this of what they know, or they just want to scare you off a little bit, they'll often tell you, hey, Jojo, my nickname was Jojo as a child, and it is today as well, Jojo. So Jojo, no, Momo, no, don't go there, no, Momo. So from what you and I know, what is Mu? What is Mumu? Okay, Mumu is the phrase that says, okay, don't go there. It's a hidden secret. Okay, it's magical. Don't go there unless you really want to know what's going on. But you and I know what Mu stands for, right? So it stands for
unconditional
Lemuria.
love.
Was it Lemuria? Lemuria.
Yeah, and it was the first symbol. It's spelled MU, and that's the symbol of unconditional love, to put it simply. And that's some of the energy, and actually, no, that is the energy and symbol that I use when I work with my clients, is this first energy of unconditional love.
Wow. Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. And one more, can you get that energy from family in itself, especially from hidden teachings, from oral tradition that's passed on. So I have yet to really ask what they know about anything. But again, that from this conversation alone, it's allowing me to remember certain things, to kind of like revisit that, especially with my parents and the elders within my family, And so, again, there's a connection to everything. We are all connected. And even so, I know we're all over the place, but like I have this tattoo on my left forearm. It's the flower of life, and the flower of life, that symbology, can be seen all over the world, not only like say the Philippines or in native American culture, or even in Peru, or even in Egypt. The symbol was prominent in ancient times and other timelines throughout the world. So it's like from all of these different cultures and countries and nations, like you start to realize that at one point, because we just had that simple symbology which put us together, that basically tells you that at one point we were as one, as a globe. Yeah.
Yeah, and I definitely want to keep this conversation going, and we will, on Joel's show. So, Joel, tell us a little bit about your show.
My show is Quantum Mindfulness Radio and the Great Awakening, and you can log on to it at quantummindfulnessradio.com. It's also on the same network as Light Insight with Hillis Pugh on Real Revolution Radio XO. I am the executive producer of that network. I've also founded it back in 2015, so it's 5 years later, almost 5 years, and it's a radio station, online radio station, which caters to the great global awakening or remembering per se to what we're going through right now as we speak. And the thing that I'm basically trying to broadcast out there right now is that there is the popular media nowadays, but that's the old world, okay? But the way that podcasters are out there right now, such as Hillis and I, and the rest of the wonderful broadcasters on our network, we are the new mainstream media because it's from the people. It's not from any particular sect of broadcasting which is owned by any corporative entity or elitism, but it's just the power of the people, the power of voice, giving back to the people. And this is going to be the new trend that is going to be happening in this new timeline that has been generated as of late. So tune in, quantummindfulnessradio.com.
Yeah. Thank you, Joel, and I can't wait to keep this conversation going on your show. So we'll see you guys and talk to you guys real soon.
See you soon.
But heard instead, dear listeners, through podcast radio on realrevolutionradio.com. Never before has inspirational podcast radio been taken to this next level of wow. Until now. Today, in the age of information, more and more people are searching for answers and in solutions in how to better approach and perceive every day-to-day concerns by tuning in to realrevolutionradio.com. Isn't it about time we take back our lives, back in consciousness, in a higher state of awareness, in the evolution of our own state of higher well-being? Yes, we can do so consciously every day by tuning in to the many groundbreaking and third eye-opening podcasts. Our new Cleveland-based network of over 33 paradigm-shifting internet talk shows. Only on realrevolutionradio.com. Be part of that change. Evolve. Be inspired.